Um, the event format really is going to be the chair, so that Zafar and myself will be asking the questions that have been submitted to us through an online survey and some social media posts that we've had. And what we've done is we've collected all those questions and then put them into a format that can be used in an event like this. What will happen is then the candidates will have an opportunity to give us an answer, approximately 1 minute each. And then after the question, there may be some rebuttals that Zafar or I may find in one of the answers that they've given. And then we'll also open it up to the audience. But we must stay on topic. We can't jump topics. So if we're talking about topic A, we can't go to topic C and so on. So just to make sure everybody kind of is able to follow the process. Now, one last thing I'd like to say is that unfortunately, the Reform candidate, Matt Lansley, he did attend the event and made his apologies. He's had a personal issue which has required his attention immediately. Unfortunately, the location's about 25 miles away from here. It's unlikely he will return. So he does apologize for that. But I think we can understand, personal conditions and lives are more important, so we let him get on and sort that out. Okay, so let's get going. Yeah. So what we'll do is we'll ask each of the candidates to stand up and introduce themselves. You have 90 seconds to do that, and then we'll get through and start asking our questions. We'll start with Ben at the far end, who represents the Green Party. Thank you, Ben.
Hi, yeah, so I'm Ben Foley, and I'm a councillor here in Bedford, and I was re-elected last year with an increased majority. I've lived close to the station for 25 years. My children were born at Bedford Hospital. They went to local state schools, and they've now headed off to university. I work for a small disability charity. Now, the last general election was won by the Conservatives with a large majority nationally. This time, every single opinion poll, every single projection shows that they will lose seat after seat after seat. And when they won with a big majority last time, they didn't win this seat. And so when they're going to get trounced this time nationally, they're still not going to win here. They haven't got a hope. So how you vote here in Bedford won't affect the outcome of the general election this time. Your crucial question is, what message do you want to send with your vote? Do you want to send a message that you're okay with massive cuts to public services? If so, you can vote Conservative or Labour or Reform. That's what they've all got in common. The Labour manifesto is so bad, so much like the Conservative ones, that one of the Labour Party's biggest backers, Unite the Union, themselves have refused to endorse it. If you want to support public services, the thing to do is to vote Green. Please vote for me in this general election.
I'm Yasin, the Labour candidate for Bedford and Kempston. I was councillor for 13 years, and for last 7 years, I had honour to represent Bedford and Kempston in Parliament. Under the Conservative government, we had to put fight on different channels and almost every aspect of life. For example, they tried to shut down A&E and move that to Luton. We worked together with the mayor that time and other organization and NHS. We saved A&E. They also tried to move maternity unit to Milton Keynes. Together again, we saved maternity unit. I have a number of plans for Bedford for the future. To open their theme park and film studio in Bedford. So we will have up to 10,000 jobs. We will put Bedford on the map of the world. This is our future. So this seat, Bedford seat, is between Labour and Conservative. So these colleagues sitting around me, whatever they say, they don't have to deliver tomorrow.
Thank you,
It'll be
Yasin.
either Labour or Conservative.
Thank you. Okay. Henry?
Thank you very much. My name is Henry Van. I am a local teacher and a local councillor and leader of the Liberal Democrat group on Bedford Borough Council. It was really great to hear the two comments we just heard, incidentally. It's great to have Yasin's support for the successful campaign of the Liberal Democrats with local residents locally to save Putney Walk-in, to save our hospital, our A&E unit and our maternity services. And it's great that you're so excited about the universal investment conversations, for which obviously started many, many months ago. I have loved campaigning successfully with residents to save those facilities, to build new classrooms in our schools, to reduce rough sleeping and to tackle climate change. That's my first point, really. I've got a track record. My second point, please vote for change, okay? Let's cut to the chase. It's been said already. The Conservatives aren't going to win here. They're out of the race nationally. They are completely collapsing, okay? They're fighting amongst themselves nationally. But most people on the doorstep, I'm afraid, tell me that Keir Starmer's Labour Party are not particularly inspiring either, I'm afraid. So I, if elected as your Member of Parliament, will have the right priorities to fight for our NHS, for clean water in the Great Ouse, and to save local services, and to represent all of our communities, as I have done in the past already. Thank you very much.
Tariq?
Hello, good afternoon, everybody. My name is Tariq Javed, known as TJ to some of my friends. I haven't got much of a portfolio to tell you about. I've spent most of my life in the RAF, serving Queen and Country for 35 years. I've lived in Bedford most of my life. Went to school at Biddenham, John Howard when it was open, then Biddenham. I've chosen to go the independent route because I don't like the policies of Conservative or the Labour Party. I want to focus on Bedford and Bedford alone. I will do my utmost best to deliver where the other parties have failed for Bedford. I'm that dedicated. I'm going to donate half of my salary to services in Bedford just to show people that there are people out there who are honest and trustworthy and who will put Bedford first all the time. Thank you.
Pinder?
I've spent the last 18 months knocking on doors, meeting schools, charities and businesses to listen to your views. Bedford and Kempston are towns with so much potential which have been let down. There are very real issues impacting Bedford and Kempston that have had a direct impact from the Labour MP who's represented you for the last 7 years. Even though Yasin has had the opportunity through government funding, through his watch, the town centre has been decimated and opportunities to improve Bedford and Kempston have been lost. He has no vision for Bedford and Kempston. His election pledges, despite being the MP for Bedford and Kempston for the last 7 years, have prioritised on Labour priorities, national pledges. He claims to have saved Bedford Hospital, but a simple Google search will show you that this is not the case. For the last 14 years, Lib Dems and Labour have decimated the council services. They have failed miserably to plan for a growth in population, plowed money into 20-mile-an-hour zones with speed cameras, instead of taking care of the rising population for the area, like planning for additional doctor surgeries and secondary schools. As much as Reform, the Greens and the Lib Dems want to focus on the polls, my focus is on Bedford and Kempston. This election is a choice between myself and Mohammed Yasin. You have a choice on the 4th of July for prosperity, vision and investment, or see the same old Yasin running this town to the ground again. Public life has been marred by dishonest politicians, but I'm a new face and I do not wish to be judged upon the actions and politicians.
Thank you, Pinder.
I want to bring integrity and honesty into politics.
Prince Sadiq, please. Thank you.
Good afternoon, everyone. My name is Prince Sadiq Chowdhury. I'm a qualified solicitor. I'm a son of immigrants. My dad came to United Kingdom in 1963. When he came to United Kingdom, he started his life from Bedford. He worked as a brick worker in the Stuart B brick field. And after several years, he moved to Northampton. Since he left, we have a strong connection with Bedford. I have lots of relatives and friends in here. Today I'm here because Bedford has a special place in my heart. I had the privilege to serve this British community for the last 25 years through the grassroots politics socials, and community work. And I believe if I get the opportunity, I'll be able to work with the people of Bedford. And I think this is the time for the change. And I think we should be free to choose who we want to vote. We cannot believe in two political parties. So stand up for the change. And I ask you to give me the opportunity so we can work together and we can make Bedford and Kempston one of the prosperous towns in the country. Thank you.
Thank you. So actually, as all the candidates seem to think they know the answer to Bedford, I think we'll start with that question. And what we'll do is, firstly, welcome to Pinder and Prince Sadiq back to Bedford. Obviously, you have links to Bedford, but decided to grow up elsewhere. So, as the people who've now come back to Bedford, do you know why Bedford has not thrived? Don't blame the current MP because it's not his fault necessarily. Okay, there's been different shades of electoral representation in Bedford, and Bedford hasn't thrived under any of them in reality. So I'd like to have your views on how Bedfordians can feel better about Bedford, and people from Luton don't refer to as people from Bedford. Go with Prince Sadiq first, please.
Yeah, firstly we have to look. We have two established political parties. One is Labour Party, one is Conservative. One come to the vote, they take everyone vote for the grants. But once come to the reality, they forget about the town, forget about the working class people, and they all will listen to the capitalists and industrialists. What we need to represent somebody from the towns, from the neighboring, who believe and who live with the people, who understand about the people, what their requirements. And if we do that, I think this is the only way you can resolve the problems. It's very important to people to think about, rather than two major political parties, think about somebody who can represent you truly, who believe about you.
Sadiq, what I would like to hear is answers as to what it is that we would do. The notional idea of that you're going to come up with a great idea is great. What is that idea?
Idea is the first thing. You have to work with the community. You have to listen to them.
That's what everybody else says as well.
Well, they're totally different. When they listen to the other people, they never do anything for the people. You need to talk to the people, have a one-to-one. Tell them what they want, what's the problem. That's the only way you can resolve the problem is work with the people, talk to the people. And that's the most important thing you need to do. Because as a worker party, we are free to speak. We are free to do what we like. We are not actually subject or be in tie with any other party.
Okay, thank you. Pinder, would you like to share your views, please?
Yeah, absolutely. Well, so first of all, I have a very strong connection to Bedford, not just from there. My place of worship has been here for the last 25 years. My in-laws live here. My father's family are all here. And as a child, I grew up here. So yes, I do have a connection to Bedford. Thank you very much.
Good.
What I'd like to say is that Bedford is strategically located in a very good place outside of London. And actually, it's been left behind in a way that it should not have been in for a very long time. And yes, you're probably right, successive governments probably have failed to do that. But for the last 7 years, and I do have to make this point, we have been represented by a Labour MP. Now, what we have to do is the vision for Bedford has to be about a whole infrastructure rebuild. The health infrastructure has been left behind, the town centre infrastructure has been left behind, and actually the Bedford economy has been left behind too. So we need ways of building that. For example, we've got a newly elected Conservative mayor, and he's made so much progress in the last 12 months. For example, buying the Debenhams building, the Bills building. So again, that will help to drive footfall into the town centre. It will help to, if we have housing within the town centre, help to build the community in the town centre as well. My office has been on Tavistock Street for the last 18 months. I walk into that town centre and there's literally no life in it. So we need to make sure that we are building the Bedford economy, and opportunities like East West Rail and opportunities like Universal coming to Bedford, which the government has spent a long time in negotiating and bringing here, would actually add money not just to the UK, not just to the Bedford economy, but the UK economy too.
Okay, thank you. Tariq, can I have your views, please?
I believe Bedford is a great town, and unfortunately over the last decade we have seen under-investment causing the decline of Bedford. There are exciting projects in the pipeline, such as the Universal Studios, the East-West Railway train project. However, we need to ensure views of the Bedford residents are heard when these take place to ensure it happens in an adequate manner. We also need to invest and improve the current access to social housing. We have across the town and also tackle the issues through rough sleeping. I think we need to give priority to first-time buyers in new housing developments, take homeless seriously and rough sleeping, ensure these people have access to a bed at night, updating the planning rules which are hindering the development of affordable social housing, work with developers and ask them to produce more social housing for first-time buyers and also people who can't afford a house.
So you're suggesting social housing is the way to make Bedford thrive. Whilst that obviously brings in the construction work for the housing, how do you sustain that thriving economy later on?
I mean, I'm not saying that housing is the only answer. You know, obviously we need to reinvest the town centre, you know, bring in some big name brands like Debenhams back into it. And when Debenhams comes back, and hopefully the rest will follow, and that will bring in more jobs, more prosperity to the town.
Thank you. Henry?
I think the problem is Debenhams went bust nationally, and it's not going to be coming back into our town centre immediately. But no, I don't. I say the point. I just really want to reject the premise of the question, actually, if I may, Shiraz, if that's all right.
Go ahead.
You'll let me do that. I love Bedford, and when somebody says they walk into our town centre and can't find stuff, that really disappoints me, because there are some amazing independent businesses in our town centre. There are amazing people doing amazing things. I had somebody on the doorstep, we all do a lot of door knocking, saying, oh, you can't buy a suit in Bedford Town Centre anymore. Well, I bought this suit in Bedford Town Centre. You absolutely can. You know, there are multiple shoe shops, and yet somebody said, oh, I couldn't find a shoe shop. Well, I can point you in that direction. So I reject the premise that Bedford has actually not been doing well. We have been bucking national trends. You know, 800 libraries have closed nationally. None have closed in Bedford Borough in the last 14 years under the Tory austerity, which, let's remember, okay, when I was in 2015, I think it was, I was elected for a second time. I was re-elected as a councillor, right? And I think we got 35 million a year that time from the Conservative government. Can anyone tell me how much we got this year from the Conservative government in revenue support grant? 7 million, right? 6.8 million, it's about that. So 35 million to 7 million, and all we hear is, oh, there hasn't been this investment. And yet, under the previous administration, the conversations with Universal started before central government, actually. Okay, the conversation started around that investment. We saved our hospital. We won funding for GP surgeries, which was then cut by a Conservative government department. Okay, so that's where the GP funding went. And there's now capital funding going forward to that, which had the cross-party support of full council, obviously. So I don't accept the idea that Bedford has had a terrible 14 years. I'm really proud of the last 14 years, and I'm really disappointed that we now see council tax going up by the highest and maximum amount possible under the Conservatives. That's what they do when they get.
Okay. Yasin, if you could share your views.
The Tories have crashed the economy, and we have seen 14 years of stagnation. And I can tell you, I won't let anybody from Northampton to come and slander our town. We live here. We love our town. And I can tell you one thing. In last 14
fairness to Pinder and to Sadiq, they haven't
in last 14 years.
They haven't slandered.
You can come back. Let me finish. Okay. In last 14 years, the Tories they destroyed our economy. Pinder is talking about Bedford. What doesn't she tell about anything about Northampton? Why Northampton Council got bankrupt? Well, I wasn't councillor there. She was councillor there. So I can tell you, we are getting investment in Bedford. We've got £22 million for Station Quarter and Midland Road area. We also have a university studio coming in Bedford. Labour will start new national wealth fund worth 7.3 billion. We will help the local businesses, small businesses. We will help the new businesses. This is how we're going to bring the businesses back in Bedford. And when we will have thousands of people come in and visit Universal Studio, we will have new businesses coming to Bedford. Once they signed, the agreement with us that Universal Studio coming to Bedford, I will have a big business festival here in Bedford. I will invite the businesses coming around the world to come and start their businesses here. This is my plan for the Bedford. I love Bedford, and I will keep working for Bedford.
Thank you, Yasin. Okay. Ben, would you like to have your views, please?
Every
Sorry, one second, Ben. If you
every town.
Just 1 second. So if you guys can be patient, you will have your chance to comment on the responses that the candidates have made. It will not be productive if you are shouting out questions because nobody can hear what you're saying. Firstly, we have microphones for you to be able to use them. So I'd kindly ask you to be respectful of what you're going to be hearing, please. Thank you. And that includes overly clapping for Pinder. Ben, we should go ahead, please. Thank you.
Every town about the size of Bedford is suffering to some extent. Some are suffering far worse than Bedford. But the truth is, up and down the country, they've got problems because national government has allowed out-of-town shopping, because national government has allowed tax breaks for online retail, which haven't been provided for town centre retail. And nationally, there's been far, far, far too much poverty. Something that Greens will tackle, and I'm hoping to get chances to talk about that later on. Locally, we will support East West Rail. We will support excellent public transport to and from the Universal site, give people a chance when they're visiting there to come into the town centre, to stay in our town centre hotels to get the best economic benefit we can here. And we would support local grassroots sports clubs, music and arts venue. So Green Party policy is to invest £5 billion over 5 years in that sort of activity. And this would be local council spending, and we'd also be pushing for VAT to be axed on local theatre and cultural events to give all of those a boost. So there'd be even more to do in Bedford than there is already. And it is an excellent town with so much going on. And it's only people who haven't really spent time here that believe that there isn't a lot going on here.
Okay, thank you, Ben. So now this is the chance for the audience. If there is anybody who'd like to comment on what the candidates have said, but please remain on the topic that's been discussed here now. So I'd like to ask firstly the lady with the the pink top.
Hi. Can you hear me? Yeah. The reason I haven't seen any of you in the town centre except for Yasin and probably the Green Party guy. I've not seen any of you in normal shops. So to say you don't find any shops in town, I don't think you shop in normal shops. We all shop in normal shops. Yeah, our town centre is nice, it's good. I don't think that, we're going to bring a lot to our town centre, but opening Debenhams is not the answer. So yeah, I've got to say, you haven't been to our town centre properly. You're not from our town centre. You've not lived here the life that we are living. We have beautiful shops that we shop in.
If you could pass it to the lady in green, because I did say green first.
Hello. Thank you. I've come here because I want to hear about the politicians that don't have a track record. I don't need you to tell me what these three have done because I'm a local person. I'm passionate about politics, and I know the great work that Ben, Yassi, and Henry have done. I know nothing about you. So I find it really bad politics when a stranger comes here and puts them down, but doesn't focus on their capacity.
So I think in defense of the I'd like to point out the fact that it is not something that is I would say they are saying which is unheard. People, truthfully speaking, which are not politically aligned like you two are, would be more open to the idea that actually, you know what, Bedford has not progressed the way we want it to. At the end of the day, nobody's really against Bedford. We want Bedford to thrive. We want to live here. We love Bedford. So the idea that they've come here to trash Bedford is wrong. Please don't take that as the premise of the question. The question is being set out so that it can actually be a positive outcome rather than just a negative view about what Bedford is. So respectfully, please think about what the question's asking. Okay? So what I'd like to do is move on to another question, which kind of leads into the questions around crime in Bedford. But Zafar.
Yeah, I just wanted to remind our listeners who are listening online and through our radio station, we are broadcasting the general elections hustings from Bedford and Kempston ward. We're broadcasting from Bedford.
Thank you. So this is a question about crime and policing within the Bedford area, and it kind of leads more into the infrastructure around Bedford. And this was a question that was sent to us on our survey, and the question was: are the conditions of our local policing, roads, schools, and healthcare infrastructure the fault of successive inept councillors or central government that has failed to comprehensively invest in people instead of the overarching vested interests of shadowy lobbyists and donors? Sure. A bit more slowly. Okay. Are the conditions of our local policing, roads, schools, and healthcare infrastructure the fault of successive inept councillors or central government that has failed to comprehensively invest in people instead of the overarching vested interests of shadowy lobbyists and donors? So, Henry, you seem to be more perplexed about this than anybody else. So I'm going to put you on the spot here.
Cool. I don't know the answer to that last bit about shadowy donors, because it seems like it's getting at something that I'm really not clued up on in terms of the conversation and what people might be thinking might be going on. I don't know. My concern, because you mentioned it's about policing, but actually it's about a lot more than that, isn't it? It's about policing, it's about roads, it's about schools, it's about infrastructure. Three of those things are the responsibility of a local council. And our schools, I was education portfolio holder between 2013 and 2019. I'm really proud that we introduced a system and a scheme as a local council where we scrapped temporary classrooms. There are just a handful left, which will go, looking at the portfolio holder now, when the new special school opens. And actually, we put that bid in, and I signed off on that bid to win that funding for the new special school on Hillgrounds, okay? So I'm actually really proud of our track record on school places and delivering schools effectively. We had an education investment of about 75 million over a number of years, which is a really good thing. And you'll notice actually in Bedford Borough so far, we'll see what the new administration does, but children have been able to find a place in their local schools. And I think that's really important. But infrastructure more generally, that kind of big scale, if you like, of investment needs local government to get the funding it deserves. Because actually, if we're all standing to be MPs, we're not the ones running the local services as MPs. That's not what MPs do. MPs go to Parliament and vote on national policy and legislation. So anyone promising something local in this hustings is actually misleading you. Local councils do those things. And I'm really proud that the Institute of Fiscal Studies says that ours is a costed manifesto. Well, let me just get to my point, which is that as a result of that costed manifesto, local councils will get the money that they need to deliver those services. So it's about the track record. I think there has been investment, but perhaps it would be nice to get more funding from central government. And this will deal with that.
Yeah, so the reason this question I thought was a good one to have is because, lucky for us, we have 4 former councillors, 2 presently still. But if you're all standing to become members of parliament, you are fully aware of the process of local authority operation.
Right.
So that's why, are you one of the inept councillors that didn't do the job properly in the first place? So will you make a good MP?
No, because I've just made a point about actually delivering schools and having one of the best. It was actually independently assessed by the government's own construction advisor at the time. It's a Conservative government's own construction advisor, by the way, who said that our school building programme was the best in the country. I'm not kidding, you can go and look it up. So I'm actually really proud of our investment in schools. The other stuff, I think local councils need to be invested. And you're right, I think having MPs who understand how local councils work is an absolute no-brainer. Completely agree with you on that. And I don't want to take up any more time.
Do you?
I think MPs who have been a local councillor have a better insight into local services.
Good. Okay. Thank you, Henry. Appreciate that answer. So, Yasin, if you'd like to take the answer there.
I agree a lot of things Henry just said. I think MP should be local, should come from grassroots, should be councillor before becoming MPs to understand the issues, local or national or international, and to represent any constituency properly. So I was a councillor. I saw decline in funding from the Conservative government. As you know, that 80% of funding is not there anymore. As a result, all the services start suffering, including schools. School buildings are crumbling. In Bedford, I had to raise the issue of one special school, a PMQ, to get some funding. So it shouldn't be like that. The local authorities should get funding. So what happened was that the Conservative government, they changed the criteria, they changed the modeling of funding. So councils have to put bids for every project now. And unfortunately, there's some ministers sitting in the Whitehall that've been making decisions. So I think the council should get the funding on the need basis. So the local councillors, local mayor, they know where to spend it. That's the way forward. I think this is what the Labour Party is going to do.
Yasin.
That's what you call localism. Give the local councils power, so then they can spend money wherever they like.
Henry, you wanted to come back on something there.
Our schools are crumbling. Our schools are excellent. The one school he mentioned is the one that, unfortunately, the delays to the delivery of the special school will be solved by, because it will move. At least that's my understanding. I'm looking at the portfolio holder for a nod there, but it will open, and that's where people will go. So actually, overall,
Okay,
I think
thank
our
you.
school.
Can I go to Ben now, please? Thank you.
Just one thing.
We'll come
very
back.
quickly. I've been talking to head teachers regular basis. Henry is in private school. I'm talking about state school.
Excuse me, I was talking about state schools
Yeah,
too,
yeah,
and don't
it's
you
okay.
dare pull
I
that
think
card on me.
that's a
Don't
low
you dare
blow.
pull that card on me.
Yeah,
That's
yeah.
unacceptable.
I think
someone's profession.
Henry's fully aware of the issues in the private and public sector there. Ben, would you like to comment?
It's important in this question to recognise that policing is completely different from the others. Policing is not a local council service. So any deficiencies with policing are put at the door of central government, fairly and squarely. And
Well, with all due respect, if the local council isn't putting the pressure on the policing to be done correctly, I don't think that the policing will maybe feel the heat that it should. So there is. I take your point. I take your point from a policy perspective, but the reality is the local authority are the ones that are, shall we say, in charge of making sure everything runs smoothly here. Now, if the policing is stopping everything else running smoothly, then surely that's something that the council should be on.
well, it can try talking, it can try asking, but if it's national government priorities, which a lot of the problems are, if it's national government policy which is causing the problems, then there's virtually nothing the local council can do about the poor state of policing in its area. And what we've actually got is a situation of the police being far, far too busy as the result of inequality. We've got a situation with fraudsters trying to get rich, which are causing a lot of crime, which the police are really struggling to get hold of. We've got people that are...
So Ben, if you wouldn't mind, I'm going to come back to it. There is another question about the policing, which I wasn't going to raise. Okay. But what you're suggesting is that Bedfordians should just accept that the council is inept, can't do anything about it. And actually, if the crime rates keep going up in Bedford, it's not the fault of the local authority, it's the policing. So therefore, we can't do anything about it. I don't find that the answer Bedford is looking for.
The council have got virtually no control over this. Virtually everything relevant is outside the council's control.
I understand that from a policy point of view.
So people can say, "Oh, it's the council's fault," but they would be misunderstanding the situation. People are entitled to blame the wrong people for problems. But in the end, if you blame the wrong people, you can't get the solution. You've got to know where fault lies, and the fault lies with central government when it comes to policing.
I agree, but what I'm saying is, if we are the Bedfordians, as you are as well, we are feeling that actually the rise of crime, the rise of drug taking, and all the other fraud activity that's gone on in Bedford has just been allowed to continue. Are we just supposed to sit back and say, hey, there's nothing we can do about it?
No, we need a government nationally which will do something about it. And we need to get to a situation where control over local policing is returned to local police committees, which is where it used to be. But it's been taken away from local police committees.
Okay, thank you, Ben. I'd like to bring in Pinder first, and I'll come to you, Tariq.
So talking about roads and infrastructure, actually Bedford lost out on £25 million for roads and buses, which was offered by the government. Yes, you're right, this money, it does come into local councils, but it is the job of the MP to then question the ministers and say, why have we lost this funding? So that's a place that we've lost out on funding with. There was money that was given by the government to invest in areas like Kempston. £15 million was lost there. Now, again, that money does come to the local government, the local councils to pitch for. But again, it has to be questioned by the Member of Parliament. Why has this money been lost? And that's one of the areas that they've lost out on. When we're looking at things like the local plan is your blueprint to the government to say, this is what we want the future of our town to look like. The local plan is put together by local councils, it's presented to government. What has failed this area is not enough planning for population growth. So you've had population growth, but you've not had the growth of doctor surgeries, planning for secondary schools and so on. So that's why we are actually being left behind here. So what we need to have is proper scrutiny when it comes to your Member of Parliament, scrutinising what's going on the ground here with the local councils and working in partnership to ensure that you've got that infrastructure development and everything you need from there as well. From a policing perspective, I think crime has really got sophisticated over the last few years. You know, cybercrime has increased. Things like people impersonating over AI has increased, and the government has had to respond to those in very, very different ways. We've got issues with knife crime here, with county lines here in Bedford as well. The government Home Office has introduced £6.5 million into units, especially for Bedfordshire.
Thank you, Pinda.
But I do want to say one thing. A lot of the money goes into Luton. We should not have had that money going to Luton. It should stay here in Bedford. We need to fight harder for that.
Thank you. Tarek, would you like to share your views?
Being somebody who's lived in Bedford most of my life, I've had first-hand impact of the underinvestment in the area. The consequences are immense, and the life-changing for many citizens being able to feel safe is paramount. Central government has failed us with not providing enough funding. And if I was elected, I will make sure the central government does provide enough funding for extra policing, recruit training, also possibly a walk-in police. You don't have a walk-in police centre in the town, centre of the town, and the one we have in Kempston, which is only open until about 5 o'clock, which is I think is important. As Henry mentioned, yeah, being a councillor and then going on to be an MP, right, is not the necessity. Otherwise, otherwise this role wouldn't be open directly to an MP. My colleagues on the left are councillors, and now one is an MP. Why haven't we seen a lot of improvement with the roads, the infrastructure in the town centre?
Okay, thank you. We're just going to take a short break. We're just going to change some IT stuff. So just stay with us for 10, 20 seconds. Come back to Savik.
Oh, you back? Yeah, hello, yeah. Yes. Since I've got the mic, the last part of the question really was around priorities set locally versus top-down nationally, around people who have undue influence over the parties. Does anybody want to comment on that? The fact that priorities are dictated to by not local needs, but people who have influence over the parties and are donors, etc. Anybody want to comment on that? The question really is that we focus on local issues, and clearly you've defined what the local issues are, but sometimes local issues get ignored because there are other priorities set by people who are in authority, people who have access to power, people who have access to the PM, etc., etc., and the priorities are dictated by them rather than local people. Did you want to, sorry, Matt, did you want to say, Henry, do you want to say something?
Hello. Is that on? Oh, the mics are all off at the moment. Is it being broadcast or not? It doesn't really matter. Is it working? It's working. Hooray. I do think what we see, and this is a genuine point outside of this room. Outside of this room, is that still very sensitive? Oh, I'll lean in even more then. It was obviously that time I got a little bit cross. So there we go. I'll try not to get cross again. So I do think there is a question mark about where funding for political parties comes from. I do think there are large-scale property developers, for example, who lobby the Conservative Party to not make planning laws stringent enough so that local councils can't demand all of the infrastructure up front, because you're not allowed to. That local plan will be approved by the planning inspectorate. I do think, therefore, it needs a party that also perhaps isn't necessarily run by trade unions either, that would be able to represent the people and actually fight for local areas. Now, you know, this is, I am a member of a political party. It's called the Liberal Democrats. The reason for that is because they're the ones who knocked on my door. They're the ones who campaigned in my community, and they're the ones who believe in liberalism and democracy, and that's why I'm part of that. But their funding comes almost wholly from members, individuals who have signed up to that, okay? I do think there is an issue with large-scale money and large-scale donations. And I say this because I'm a member of a trade union because I work, right? And that's what I am. I get frustrated when that union donates money to the Labour Party as well, actually. Obviously not through my donation, but I have an issue with that because I do think sometimes there's a bias that creeps out there in workplace rights, which I have a problem with. And I've managed to get Labour Party support in the audience nodding for the bit about developers, and Conservative parts of the audience nodding for bits about union funding. So clearly I'm doing something right, but I think I probably annoyed both of them rather than getting them both to agree with me. But anyway, that's my view. So I think there is an issue about really stringent planning laws requiring infrastructure to be built up front. That is something which is a must in my view.
Is it on? Yeah. Sorry. Yeah, I think all political parties raise money, funds in the same way. You know, we're all regulated very, very heavily. And actually any donations over £500 have to be declared, okay? Now, I think what's happened is there is this kind of, you know, this thought that politicians can't be trusted. And I think that's something that politicians have to earn back across all parties. I think that we have to win the trust of the public back. And the only way to do that is to have the right people in place when it comes to politics. And actually, you know, this whole thing around Tory party donors that, you know, Henry Van's just put out there, it's just putting out that same narrative of corruption and whatever. Now, what I do want to say is this, that integrity is big. That is everything, because for me, it's my family. You know, people are going to be looking at me as a person in politics. And I think personal integrity is huge when it comes to politics, but politics is marred by a lot of people that don't trust politicians.
But your party has contributed to it in terms of the PPE contracts, etc. So to that general view.
What I'm going to say is this: when we had the pandemic, there was a lot of things that were done very, very quickly. No one expected a pandemic to hit us. A lot of those contracts were put out very, very quickly. If hindsight was a great thing, but what I won't do is condone, and I will not be, you know, defending anyone that's done any wrong actions, whether it's my party or not, and that comes down to personal integrity.
So, if
Can I say something?
Sure, go ahead. Tarek.
I agree to a certain degree with Henry, what he said. You know, the political system in the UK at one time was a beacon of light for the world to mold its political systems. Now it's been turned into a laughing stock. And who's been in charge in the last, you know, so many years? Labour and Conservatives. And I think the donor system is open to abuse. It is being abused by the politicians. There's a lot of rules and regulations which are not being followed. And that's why I'm running independent, to bring some honesty back into politics. I'm somebody who's loyal, trusted, integral, and that shows with my commitment to Her Majesty's services for 35 years.
Okay, thank you. Ben, could you come in first?
Pinder says the way political parties are funded is all the same. It's not true. Some have got vast money because they're prepared to take money from anyone. If you give us enough money, we'll forget our principles. That is not the case with the Green Party. And, you know, what we have, with the planning system is a situation where we've got vested interests that want more houses to be built. And so as part of that, we have an artificial shortage of housing, which is generated partly by there being 1 million homes or so that are kept empty by people where they could be lived in, but government won't take action nationally to do that because it's not in the interests of those that donate money to the parties to get more and more built.
Yasin, if you'd like to comment.
With all due respect, Pinder earlier mentioned that MP should scrutinize the council. I wish I could. I wish the MPs in this country could scrutinize local councils. Local council got, powers on local issues and funding. We applied Bedford Borough, and with my supporting letter, we applied funding twice, and twice a junior minister from Leeds rejected it without knowing Bedford or visiting Bedford. This is what we were dealing with. So we are also talking about integrity and trust in politics. We can bring integrity and trust in politics by getting rid of Tories.
Sadiq? Okay.
Canberra, why hasn't it happened in the past?
Okay. We'll come to the in a minute. Yeah, Sadiq. I said Sadiq. Yeah.
I think it's very important you need to be honest and you got to have integrity when you're in politics. Politics is about you want to represent the peoples and make a difference in the town and in the country. And it's very important everyone have to play, whatever regardless, your position, whether you're come from a small party or big party. I think we have to be very honest. And I think there's a lot of issues in relation to where you talk about the crimes, also education. I think it's very important. We need to address those issues, especially in Bedford. I have spoken to several people do feel there is a crimes and where they can have protections. I think a main issue in relation to it's not spending money on the crime. It's about how you work with the community, how you work with the young offenders, what is the root cause of the crime, and how we can deal with this. I think we need to educate the younger peoples, to rehabilitate them and fit them in and to rework so they can work and fit into the community.
Okay, thank you. I'm not going to come to the audience for this one because I want to move on. And we're going to move on to a subject which actually seems to be troubling the vast majority of the people who contacted us on social media and on the survey. And one of the questions that was submitted to us was that more than 50% of Gaza's infrastructure has been destroyed and over 130,000 people have been killed or injured, of which 60% are women and children. Despite this, the UK continues with 108 licenses to supply Israel with arms. Why are we not following our own laws and suspending the licenses? How will you stop the government from making us complicit in what the ICJ feels is a plausible genocide? And just before I come to the candidates, just so you understand, ladies and gentlemen, is that the number of people that have been killed, so the number of children that have been killed in Gaza is greater than the teachers and all of the students that go to school in Bedford. So just absorb that for a second. Think about that. We have over 13,000 children in Bedford alone. Now, all of them are being wiped. So just absorb that for a second. That is a major, major issue that we have to appreciate, that something is going on here that we can't just let continue. How we are going to solve that, I can't give you the answer for that. And I'm sure that probably the candidates can't either really. But it's something that we as humanity have to understand is not acceptable. So with that in mind, I'd like to start with Pinder. And if Pinder can help take that on first, please.
First of all, I think one life taken is not acceptable, let alone the amount of people that have passed away through this whole incident. Now, the other thing is that there's so much destruction that's happened over this time in this period. There has to be something that's a permanent solution to stop this altogether, because what we can't do is have temporary pauses and that's it. We need to be in a place where, the whole of the infrastructure of that area has been completely destroyed. What we need to do is get a democratic process in place for the Palestinians as well. There almost needs to be a complete infrastructure rebuild. I think that there needs to be a two-state solution. And what needs to happen is that we need to have other partners, that are not, the British or America or anyone else, that are going to go into this region and start rebuilding it. But before that, you need everyone around the table to do the same thing. So it's not just the actions of, telling the Israelis to stop or telling, the Palestinians to stop. Everyone has to get around the table and find a solution to this problem. Those hostages need to be returned, but at the same time, as governments, what we need to do is make sure that there is that right planning. But what I'm trying to say is there are too many lives that have been lost. And actually, when there is any conflict in the world, it is women that are impacted.
I'm sorry,
most.
but that wasn't really the premise of the question. The premise of the question was that why are we not observing our own laws? Our English laws in England, British laws, say that actually if the weapons that we supply are to be used in the destruction of lives, we must stop supplying those arms. That's our laws, not anybody else's, not the UN's, not the international courts, our laws.
Sure.
Why are we not observing the laws that we have in place itself? That's really the premise of the question.
Okay, so I think what we need to do is observe those laws in that case, and that comes to all arms across the world. But actually, what you're not going to have is, the sale of these arms need to be stopped. Agreed, in the sense that if they are causing this much destruction and so many deaths, we need to observe this properly. And I think it's a question that needs to be put forward with NATO and our arms and the.
I think the question really asks. From yourself, from your perspective, I think what you're saying is at odds with the Conservative Party policy at the moment. What will you do on day one if elected? What will you do to actually get the government to abide by international law?
I don't think it's the job of one person. I think we have to all get together as political parties and discuss that. I think, I think there's going to be a Labour government that will be in power at that point. But what I want to do is make sure that we have enough opposition to that to be able to do that. I don't think any of the political
No, the thing
parties
is, the Conservative Party government,
yes,
and the war has been going on for several months.
Yeah.
So there's been ample opportunity to enforce our own laws. So I think that's the point. Let's move on. This isn't to target anyone particularly. So let's move on. We are fortunate today, actually, that we have a person who is actually scholarly in this subject, and he teaches it. Henry Van. Go ahead. That's a build-up, Henry.
Yeah, thanks. You took one of the things that I was going to dwell on briefly. I'm proud to be part of a party, actually, that called out the genocide in Bosnia early on, that opposed Iraq early on, that held to its international principles and has called for the suspension of British arms going to Israel over the current situation in Gaza, because it is a huge humanitarian concern. So I think the line is clear there. I do teach it, and I think I cannot recommend people studying the GCSE course enough, frankly, because it is such a complicated and multifaceted history. If we say Sabra and Shatila, some people will know that. If you say Nakba, some people will know that. If you say Rabin and his assassination and the loss of the election by Perez, some of you will know that, some of you will not. And if you don't know that, then go up and read about it, because I think it's hugely significant. I would say as well that I think Layla Moran, as the only British Palestinian MP in Parliament, has spoken very passionately about how she is a friend of Palestinians and a friend of Israeli citizens. I think Hamas needs to go, but I also think Netanyahu's government needs to go, because it has ministers in it who have actively called for the destruction of Gaza, and that is simply unacceptable, frankly. So the question is about, sorry, there's some kind of shouting going on at the moment from the audience, but I do think it's really important. I do think it's really important that on day one, can the Conservative activists possibly stop shouting at this point?
Yeah, we'll come to the audience on this.
Well, it's your agent.
I have to say, we need to try and respect, I guess, the rules of the debate here. We're here to listen to the candidates, and then once they've had this, they will come to yourselves. And if basically, if disturbances continue, then we'll have to ask you to leave. So please
I finish
observe the rules of the debate. So
Just to clarify, sorry, Henry. Just to clarify for the audience, we are not making up these questions. These are questions that are submitted to us. They may have been submitted to us by several people, so we've had to formulate them to be addressable. So we're not making this stuff up. Okay, the vast majority of the questions that were submitted were, and I say vast majority of subject matter was Gaza. So we've actually nailed it down to a smaller number than proportionate to the questions. So please be respectful. If you don't wish to listen to it, you're more than welcome to leave. Okay, thank you.
One sentence to draw it to a close, if that's all right, from my comments. I support a two-state solution, and on day one, if elected, I would call for the recognition of the state of Palestine.
Yasin?
Thank you. My answer will be in two parts. The first one is that when this conflict started, we all condemned Hamas. But that time, nobody was condemning IDF. I was one of the first MP who stood on the floor of the House and condemned IDF as well. Since then, I have spoken on this issue many, many times, almost every opportunity. I asked for ceasefire many times. I asked for the suspension of arms sales to Israel from our country because we suspect there are arms being used against the killing of innocent people. I also asked for the recognition of independent Palestine state. The reason your question, the reason the government hasn't gone ahead and implemented the law, because the Prime Minister is hiding the independent legal advice he had from the experts. He refused to release that advice. We called on a number of times to Prime Minister and the Foreign Minister to release that report, the legal advice they had from the experts. They refused to do that. I suspect there's something very serious hidden in that report. And before he released that report, they called the election. What I can say is
I
that
think that question specifically asks,
Yeah.
I know you're talking about your own leader, Labour Party leader, right? And what you're saying is, again, you're criticizing your Labour leadership. The question specifically asks, if you're elected, are you going to call basically for the suspension of arms to Israel? That's what the question asks for. 108 licenses to supply Israeli arms.
Absolutely. I've asked to suspension of arms sales to Israel many times already, and I will continue to do that. We will go further than that. Labour Party has put this in manifesto that we will accept Palestine as an independent state. But let me finish. If I get the chance,
this is saying we will do that after you're in government, or you will be in government shortly. You had the opportunity to put that to your leadership, and leadership hasn't included that in a manifesto.
They have. Please have a look. They have included.
But yesterday, actually, it was announced that they were going to delay the recognition of Palestine to keep.
But then in the evening, the Labour Party spokesperson came out and said it wasn't true. So there was a report in the newspaper. It's not true. But I can assure you one thing, and I can tell everybody: the first PMQ I will have if I get re-elected, I will ask the Labour Prime Minister to accept Palestine as an independent state. That's my promise to all of you here today.
Ben, would you like to share your views?
I'm really glad that we've got this question. The other candidates will know that at the first two hustings, I was the only candidate to mention Gaza at all. None of them did. Now, it's true they've mentioned in other circumstances at other times, but when they were given a chance at the hustings, they wanted to forget it, talk about other subjects. Greens have been very clear, we would end the arms sales straight away, no doubt, no question. I've got no idea myself why this government is so dishonourable, apart from the fact that it's a general trend with them. You know, myself personally, I was the first person to submit a motion to Bedford Borough Council in the winter that resulted in the council calling for a ceasefire. As As well as calling for a ceasefire, the motion condemned the Israeli military and the disproportionate massacre of Palestinian civilians. The motion supported divestment, sanctions, and boycotts. Those were the right things to be calling for then. It's the right things to be calling for now. I was enormously frustrated that when it was debated in the council chamber, the Liberal Democrats on the council sided with the Conservatives and took out virtually all of the substance from the motion. Virtually all, not absolutely all. So as far as I'm concerned, I know my record here is very, very strong in calling for, the end of arms sales to the Israeli army and for sanctions against that regime. It's got to be part of an immediate ceasefire, bilateral ceasefire and release of hostages. And we need to get on with it and do it now.
Thank you, Ben. Sadiq?
Every day, lots of innocent children and women are dying in Palestine. It's really horrific. Many people can't sleep in the night. You can see every Saturday, everyone's going to London and marching and protesting against this genocide, potential genocide. And what you could understand, our government's the one who's helping, supporting, and baiting and providing all this ammunition to cause this genocide. We must stop that immediately. This is a violation of international law. And also we need to recognize and come up with a solution how we can stop this. I think Palestinian people have the same right as the Israeli, equal right, all the prosperity and good education and food nutrition. I think everyone need to stand up. Where is injustice? I think this is one of the core values of British people to stand for the injustice. And I think we should all support and ask for the immediate ceasefire.
Tariq?
We've all seen these horrific scenes on TV and heard on the radio of innocent children being killed over the 9 months. But it's not 9 months, it's nearly 70 years while the Palestinian people have been persecuted by the Israelis. The laws were set by the United Nations years ago. Why weren't these laws followed up? If you're going to do something, then why don't you police it? This has been brought on by the West in complicit with the United Nations. Both parties' hands are covered in blood because they have not called for a ceasefire. Our Labour candidate called for a ceasefire on the day of when the general election was announced. How convenient. How many rallies did he go to in London? None. He only went to, you've had your chance right now, let me finish. How many rallies did he go to in London, for the Palestinian, pro-Palestinian rallies, He didn't want to go because he didn't want to upset his leader. He only went to the ones in Bedford when the boys in Bedford pressured him and made small speeches, right? If he'd done what he said, then he would have come out first of all. If I'm elected as a member of parliament, I will call for immediate state of Palestine, immediate ceasefire, and Netanyahu and the state of Israel brought to trial in the human rights courts and tried for genocide. There's no other ways of putting it, right? This is clear genocide, and it's been happening for a very long time. When you read a book, let me finish, please, When you read a book to your child, you don't start halfway through the page. So why does everybody keep going on about the 7th of October?
Thank you,
This
Tariq.
happened years ago,
Tariq.
Let's start from the beginning. And
Okay. Yasin, if you would like to respond, because Tariq has referenced you specifically. But before you do that, I'd like you to also address the fact that your leader for the Labour Party has said it was fine to cut the electricity, the power, the food, etc. And the situation that was created from that is largely what's happening now. Had that not been allowed to continue, maybe things would have been different.
That wasn't a correct statement. I must agree. I raised it with the leader in one-to-one meeting as well. But on Tariq just said, it's completely untrue. There was no debate after elections were announced. So that's the proof that it didn't happen. I raised second week of when the conflict started, because first week I wasn't in the country, and everybody got my videos here. So I got nothing to prove. It's very easy to sit here and claim the champion on Gaza, but refuse to put anything in the leaflets because you're going to lose the votes. I got track record. I have spoken on Gaza before this war started in July. I got video here. In July, I raised the issue.
Thank you,
So this
Yasin.
is
Let's
not
go,
true.
let's go to
that
the
only
audience.
raised on the election
Okay,
time.
Yasin,
Come on,
thank you.
get your facts right.
So let's go to the audience and ask any questions to the audience. The gentleman in the blue denim shirt or top.
So, since the existence of a Tory party, since the start of Lord Balfour accepting and disregarding the fact that Palestinians, disregarding the fact that Israeli state could be created and the disregard of Palestinian lives in Israel, Tory government has a history of disregarding the fact that Palestinians are native to their land.
So what is your question? Can you get to the question, please?
Yeah, so how can the Tory party and the Labour Party both come together throughout their history to advocate for the rights of human people and to fight for justice and human rights in Palestine?
Okay, thank you. I'll take that to Tariq. Actually, let's go to you for that. What's your comment on what the gentleman said?
I mean, enough killings taken place already. Yeah, we want a ceasefire straight away. We want a two-state. I would like a two-state solution to be processed immediately, and the Palestinian people to live in peace and harmony, as well as the Israelis. And what people are saying, there's nothing on the leaflets. Yeah, what's the leaflets got to do with it? I'm not here looking for votes. Yeah, I'm here stating the facts. Yeah, which are going on in the world. Yeah, and I'm not just championing Gaza. I will champion anybody who's being persecuted, whether it's the Ukrainians or the people in Palestine. Yeah, I will stick up for humanity wherever there's injustice being carried out, and injustice being carried out in Palestine, and everybody knows it. It's one rule for one and one for another.
So okay, let's. I'm going to ask if we move on. I think we've covered that particular question. The next question still is a Gaza question, but it relates to a slightly kind of a Bedford-centric view as well again. And it says, why is there no more money for infrastructure, healthcare, education, and policing in Bedford, but there is for military aid to bomb the daylights out of innocent women and children who just want food, electricity, and fuel? Is it too much to ask our governments to stop using our taxes in this continual cycle of killing, giving aid, more killing, more giving of aid? At a time when austerity is here, we are struggling on and cannot take this anymore. Our children need food, electricity, and fuel. So I guess the premise of the question really is the focus on governments tends to be on using our taxes for war. Why is it that a focus is not on the betterment, the livelihoods, and the existence of in a harmonious state for the people of the town that we live in here in Bedford, in Bedford's case? Is it not appropriate that actually most of our money should be spent on us? Why is it sent overseas to fund wars? Henry, I'd like you to start with that one.
We mix up who goes first, hopefully, every now and then.
Yeah.
I think that there are sort of multiple dimensions to that question, if you like. And I'm going to try and be really quick, but it is going to mention manifesto costings, okay? I hope you're okay with that. The other candidates who have been at Hustings before will know I go on and on about how costed our manifesto is and how we've actually produced this full costing, and how the IFS, the Institute of Fiscal Studies, which is independent, says that the Labour and the Conservative Party aren't being honest with you about tax rise and what they're going to need to do, or the cuts that they're going to need to do. Whereas it says that the Liberal Democrat manifesto actually is one of the most egalitarian. It doesn't cost the Green or the Reform Party manifesto because it said the sums don't add up. So on the specifics of the question, and the reason I mentioned that is because there are two elements of the manifesto that I'm so proud of, which come at it from different directions, okay? The first is that actually the Liberal Democrat manifesto would increase our international aid commitment back to the 0.7% that it should be. That is us playing a global role and the right role to support countries. And that's not spending on war, that's spending on aid, on girls' education, on access to education, on access to clean water, on roads, that kind of thing that can make such a difference internationally. And actually, believe it or not, is strategic diplomatic sense anyway, in terms of the UK and how we should be using that funding. But that would be a commitment to spending that money in that way. That's 0.7%. I'm not sure where the most of our money being spent on war comes from, but the other angle of this is that costed manifesto would put the funding back into local councils to actually deliver a lot of those services that we've seen lost when cuts are made. So I just, it's coming at it from two angles, if you like, but I think that does answer the question in terms of what I really think is going on there. Use of our military. I mean, sorry, whenever I talk freely about our military, I've never been prouder. And this is 2003. I remember being, I was quite young then, sorry. But I remember looking at the TV and being unbelievably proud of Puma helicopters lifting people off the top of trees in Mozambique when the floods hit, and actually using our military forces for international aid and for supporting people and for saving lives. That I'm not ashamed of, and I don't think that's a problem at all. And I thought that was something that you can really watch and be proud about. There we go.
Henry, let's go to Yasin on that, please.
I'm anti-wars. I don't like wars anywhere in the world, and especially when our countries involved in that. But on the international aid, I think it's very important that we help the nations who are struggling, especially with the making improvement in the environment. And that's the reason, and tackle poverty. So that's the reason I do support 0.7% of the budget for international aid in poor countries around the world.
This is about war.
This is
war.
Well, I did make clear about the war, but wasting money on unnecessary war is wrong. But you also have to defend your country. So in for example, there is a threat from Russia, and there are intelligence reports that is a threat from Russia. So our government's duty is to defend our country. So going into the unnecessary wars, I didn't support Iraq war. I don't support Afghanistan war. But when it comes to defending your own country, I think you have to do it.
I don't think anybody disagrees with defending the country. This is about Tariq, please hold. This question specifically about the fact that there are issues with finding money for doctors. There are issues with finding money, right, for local services, etc. Whenever there is war, whenever there is some sort of companies, multinational companies, right, who want to get into in a situation where they think that they need some injection of money. The money is found, but not for local services. That's what this question is about. And the other thing is, some of the things that you've said go against the Labour Party and its manifesto and what it stands for. It's quite, I guess it's quite common for you to sort of say that without any consequences. Will you now resign from the Labour Party because your views are, against your parties?
My views are same as number of other MPs and the grassroots membership. And as I said, I don't support Iraq. Didn't support Iraq war. Didn't support Afghanistan war. I also say that when it comes to defending our country, we have to defend our country. But we don't need to get into unnecessary wars. That's what I'm saying.
Hello. Yeah. So, which party was it that took us to war in Iraq? I believe it's the Labour Party. Okay. When was the last time the UK defended its shores? Yeah, it was back in the Second World War, not recently. Yeah. So you say we're helping in wars, right? So would you say what you're doing in Gaza, right? Is that helping? So if you feel so strongly about these wars, yeah, then why didn't you resign from the party, right, that's advocating these wars?
Can I answer that? Can I get a chance to speak sometime?
Yeah.
Ben, in
Right.
on that as well.
Right. Part of why I want to speak here is that I am proud. The Green Party is different. It is very clear. It has in its manifesto that it will reduce national military spending. you know, and is got very clear ideas about where and how those cuts should be made, you know, and you know the others will we've got to be all macho about posing. Forget it. Let's be real. What do we use the military for? What is their purpose? How can we achieve our aims? What we do have in common though is that, you know, Green Party would support a big increase in overseas aid budget. We say it should be up to 1% of gross national income, right, rather than the 0.7 that Henry was talking about. You know, but you know, we'd also increase support for lower income countries to deal with the climate crisis, and another 1.5% of gross national income. These things are needed to help make the rest of the world more stable, better able to cope with the conditions it's facing. So long as people are incredibly hard pressed by the situation that they're in, then they start fighting amongst themselves over the scraps that are left. If we can lift up people that are in these hard pressed situations, then a lot of the causes of the conflict are removed.
Thank you, Ben. So, Apinda, can you come in on that now?
That the nation's gone through a very, very tough time over the last, you know, decade or so. Also, you know, we've had when the Conservatives took over this government, we were in 138 billion pounds worth of debt. On the eve of the pandemic, we brought that down to 38 billion pounds. Okay. And obviously, what's happened since then, you've had the pandemic, the cost of living crisis, you've had the war in Ukraine, and these have had massive pressures on local services and people living in this country. So there's been, what I would like to see is that the people of this country, in England, we prioritize a lot of those pressures that are being felt there. You know, we've got, you know, the economy is now growing faster than any country in the G7. Inflation is coming down, and mortgage rates are falling. But what we need to also do is ensure that, you know, we've been very, very generous as a country, you know, when it came to Afghanistan, when it came to Hong Kongers, when it came to Ukrainians, we welcomed them into this country. We made sure that.
What about the children in Gaza who've been injured? You don't seem to be
I'm
opening about
leading
them.
into that. Sorry, you keep on bringing it back to that, but you're not letting me finish what I'm trying to say there. So
But
what
the
I will
question
say
is about
this.
Gaza.
I think it was a question about Gaza and what's going on here, because you asked why we're not prioritizing things that are going on in the UK. So I'm trying to address both of those issues. Yes, it's a very, very complicated issue in Gaza, and absolutely, you know, we should not have any children dying when it comes to war, and it must stop. But the other thing is that, you know, you're talking about the UK fueling this war. There are other parties that are also fueling Hamas, and we have to have a recognition into that as well. Who is providing those, you know, Hamas with those weapons too? You cannot ask one party to lay down weapons. It has to be all parties. This is Israel and Hamas. Hamas are a terrorist group, and they need to be, you know, that needs to be addressed as well in this room. It cannot be a one-sided conversation.
Prince Sadiq.
By the Israeli army, I would say the Israeli Defense Force is a terrorist organization as well. Just because the West doesn't want to admit to it, that's another thing. Okay. It's ironic. Hang on, Pinder, you've had your chance. Yeah. It's ironic. Yeah. I totally agree. You know, it's ironic. Whenever there's a war, we always find money, but there's people that have served this country in the Second World War are going without heating food on a daily basis, okay? But we can find money. But you know why? Because that sells arms and keeps the people at the top happy.
So thank you, Joe. Let's move on. Let's get Sadiq in, please.
Thank you. Yeah. Living cost is going up. Everyone's struggling to feed their children. There's the pensioner who's struggling to put the heating on because they can afford, because they have a limited income. Whenever there is narrative of any war, we seem to have money to give it to them. But we've got no money for the British citizen who's struggling every day. So this is something that need to be addressed. I strongly believe that, because end of the day, those pensioners who work 30, 40 years, they pay the tax, and now they are struggling and they need people's help.
Okay, so I think that's everybody from the panel. Let's open that to the floor. We have a gentleman there at the back with his hand up. At the back, behind you, Kaha. Yeah.
Half an hour left, haven't we?
No. Half an hour. Thank you. You might have a window.
Just a quick question. While we're on this subject, genocide has been bandied about quite a few times from different people, and politicians are known not to give. Politicians are known not to give a straight answer. So I'm going to ask a simple question: yes or no? Is Israel committing a genocide? Bearing in mind that the definition of genocide is the deliberate killing of a large number of people from a particular nation or ethnic group with the aim of destroying that nation or group, and also with the knowledge that 150,000 people are dead or injured, not passed away, not dying, killed, slaughtered, tortured even. 40,000 is it? Save the Children and other agencies that have confirmed how many have died, mostly women and children. And 15,000 children are still unaccounted for. So question, is Israel committing a genocide?
1,000% right there, committing genocides. You know, no matter how you cut it, right, it's genocide. Ethnic cleansing at its best.
I agree with Tariq, it is a genocide, but you could understand whatever they're doing in Yemen is unacceptable, and this is a violation of international law. And I think everyone should recognize that, and we should support those peoples of Palestine. They are the oppressed, and they're the people who need our help.
Is that your
this war
opinion
must
as a
stop, yeah.
is that your opinion as a politician or as a lawyer?
As my personal view. Yeah.
As a lawyer.
Yeah.
Okay. You have a view on this too?
There we go. I didn't get angry again, did I? No. I think it's a really good question. It's a really serious issue. But if you want somebody to stand trial, as I think certainly some of the comments made by members of Netanyahu's government have been genocidal, okay, I'll say that for sure. But if you want somebody to stand trial and to basically be found guilty of genocide, then you have to support the process and the institutions internationally which deliver that process. I am really proud to be a member of an internationalist party, but a politician, parliamentary candidate sitting here in Bedford and Kempston saying, yes, it's a genocide or no, it's a genocide. You may say you want a particular answer from a politician. That would be the wrong answer. The right answer is to say that the International Tribunal is looking at it. They say there's a plausible case. I will wait to see what their judgment is, because I haven't visited Gaza or Israel, and you know, if I were elected an MP, I would certainly join one of the trips that goes to look at that. But it would be wrong of a politician now to pronounce on genocide. That's precisely the kind of problem we've had in the past, actually, with people deciding something before they've looked at all the evidence. If you want something to stack up in court, you want people to stand trial, you have to allow the international process to happen. Well, that is my answer to the question. That's not a typical politician answer. It's an actual answer to the question.
Thank you. Ben, can we have
an
Ben,
answer to the question. It's one that's
Ben, can we have your view on that?
Built on humanity.
It's right. We need to find out what the proper international tribunal finds out. I believe it will find out that yes, it is genocide.
Yeah, Yasin.
I agree with Henry that if you want to have a trial of any leader who is committing genocide, it should be approved by ICJ and must be approved by ICJ. Sorry, but the way things look, it looks like genocide to me. I just said it.
He just gave the same answer that Ben gave that you applauded. So actually, you know,
calm down.
Can I have a Pinder, please, to go next?
I have to agree with what Henry said there as well. I will agree, and I can't believe I'm agreeing with the Lib Dem, but actually what Henry said is right.
How come the government has decided to block the ICJ, the warrant on ICJ from Netanyahu and the defense minister? What's your views on that? Why is the British government supporting the delivery of justice?
I don't think the government is doing that. I mean, what is happening here is there's an international law that needs to look at this properly, and actually what you can't do is just say this is what it is. What you need to have is a proper trial, and that is what's going on, and that is what the government is advocating. And I actually do think that they may find it was genocide. You know, I do, but I cannot, sitting here as a a candidate standing for Bedford and Kempston say that I've seen all of the evidence to say that that's exactly what it is. And like I would, if I was elected, one of the things I would do is want to look at this independently and pay attention to this issue and see what that is, and the outcome of that.
Don't you see it's unusual for the British government to defend Netanyahu?
Sorry.
Do you think it's unusual that British government, not any other government, not the US government?
I'm not defending Netanyahu. I think that he has got some extremist views as well within Israel. I think those views need challenging. I don't agree with Netanyahu.
I think, the ICJ suits the purpose of the West. They'll be happy with it when they find somebody guilty who the West don't like. But when the ICJ finds Netanyahu guilty, right, the West will not agree to that. They'll say, oh, we don't, he's not accountable. He doesn't come under their jurisdiction. And that's typical double standards we've seen all along, right, throughout the war.
Okay, just one more to the floor before we go on. We have sorry, the gentleman in the green at the front.
So, this hustings is supposed to be about Bedford and Kempston, okay? For the last half an hour, 45 minutes, we've heard about Gaza. But also, what about Ukraine? But we have to keep it on Bedford and Kempston.
It's coming, and I've told you before that the vast majority of the questions that were submitted were about Gaza. We actually pared them down, okay? Because theoretically, we could have done 100% on Gaza, but we haven't. Okay, so thank you for your comment. If you have a question, please feel free to ask it. Otherwise, give the mic back.
Okay, so basically, what about Ukraine? Where do you all sit on Ukraine? Do you support Israel or do you support Ukraine? Because obviously money is going from the British government there as well.
So I'll tell you what, I'll bring it from another question because somebody did submit a question which brought in the Ukraine, but it takes it from a different angle. So we're going to move on. It still brings in Gaza, and actually it has something to do with immigration.
On Gaza only, we have to keep it very clear to Bedfordian issues
Right,
as well.
but these are the questions that have been submitted. Oh, okay.
You've sent us a list of areas that will be
Yes.
questioned. Gaza is one of those areas, and it definitely does need, to be prioritized. But it cannot be the only area we discuss. We need to look at different areas as well.
What I'd like you to understand, Pinder, and to the other audience as well that are listening, I'm going to repeat myself for the last time. This was a massive set of questions for this particular subject. We have pared it down because obviously I agree with you. We want to talk about Bedford. But the residents of Bedford are a cosmopolitan group of people.
Yes.
So we are one of the most cosmopolitan towns in the country. So therefore that issue resonates with them as well. Now what we're going to move on to is immigration, but it has a Gaza twist to it as well, and a Ukrainian twist. The thing is, we don't live in isolation. You might like for us to live in isolation, okay, as a Brexit supporter. But anyway, so
actually, how do you know I voted to leave or remain?
I'm referring to your party. I'm referring to your party.
But there are people that voted to remain there
of
as
course.
well.
So the point is, thank you very much for your views. Yeah, I am impartial. Thank you. Thank you. Okay, would you like to leave with yourself? Then please, I can stay quiet. Okay, stay quiet. I am being as partial as I can. Let's not get into this debate. Okay, thank you. Right, nice one. Right. So for the last time, we will address an issue which is related to Gaza, but it is also moving on to other subjects. Okay. So we have, unfortunately, this question was actually directed at the chap that's not here because it seems to fit with his narrative a little bit more. And it was effectively, will you commit to expanding refugee settlement programs that provide a safe and legal route for the most valuable refugees that to reach the UK, such as Ukrainians have already benefited from, and Palestinians and Syrians haven't necessarily? So, Pinder, would you like to take that question, please?
So I think immigration, legal and illegal immigration, is very, very high in this country. And we have been very, very as a country, we've been very, very generous when it comes to refugees coming here. So, for example, Afghanistan, when there was a war there, we were very welcoming then to refugees. When it came to Hong Kong and when it came to Ukraine as well, we definitely have been. And I think if we were to open up those routes, we need to allow the same. The same offering as well. But I think what we do need to also do is control our immigration figures, our migration figures too. What we can't do is just, just open the floodgates for everyone.
Okay, but since Brexit, the legal migration has massively increased to the UK. Now, you have control of your borders, apparently. So what is it that we now are able to do that we couldn't do before Brexit?
Well, basically, we've ended free movement. We've introduced a points-based immigration system here. Basically, the other thing is, we've if you're talking about legal migration, we've introduced, a command of boats to help stop those crossings.
Legal migration.
Legal migration.
Legal
So we
migration.
stopped things like dependence. So up until last year, people were actually quite abusing our system here, and we were letting dependents of those, a lot of those people that are coming here to study, for example, or coming here on NHS social route visas. What we've done is control those and said, well, actually, dependents can't come here. So that legal migration is being controlled. And the other thing is that we're putting a cap on the amount of people that can come here. So it's another thing that the Conservatives are proposing, is putting a cap on migration here. So it will be Parliament that decides how many people come into this country.
Do you think that would
just the system.
disproportionately affect Bedford, considering we have a large number of ethnic minority residents of the town who are recent arrivals but are working in the NHS, helping in the
NHS,
construction industry, helping in the IT industry, helping in social care and care for the elderly?
Yeah, so there are routes when it comes to things like the NHS for us to bring people here to work here. Where we do need that, that support. But what they're stopping is the dependents coming alongside them, because that is an issue. Things like we're talking about social care; those have been abused in the past. We are getting people that are abusing our system.
Thank you, Ben. Would you like to come in?
Yeah. This is just ridiculous. People have always moved around the world in search of better lives. Yeah. I'm a descendant of migrants myself. Most people here are descendants of migrants. And it's going to happen more and more because there's increasing famine, there's increasing climate damage around the world. There are going to be parts of the world that become less and less habitable. What we've got to do about it, we've got to provide those that are fleeing safe and legal routes to get here. If you provide safe and legal routes, then there's no need for the small boats crossings of the channel. You give people a chance. You give people the support when they get here. You turn this into a country which is honourable, is welcoming, is one where people can live with dignity and without fear of intimidation once they're here. That's the way we should be. And I just totally reject the hostility to people that migrate from one part of the world to another that you get from the right of the political spectrum in this country.
Thank you, Yasin.
I'm one of the legal immigrants in this country, and lucky enough to be a member of Parliament, which I'm proud of. I support legal migration. But I also support the same scheme we have for Syria, for example, when we had innocent and vulnerable people who brought them over to settle here. And I was councillor then, and I had a portfolio for housing when the first two families arrived and we received them from the airport. I believe that scheme should be extended to people of Palestine, and especially those families where there is nobody to look after them and their young children left without, parents or father should be allowed. The same scheme should be extended to these long-suffering people of Palestine.
Thank you. Henry, would you like to come in fourth now?
Yeah, sure. I'm just going to echo something. I'm unbelievably proud of the role the Bedford Borough Council has taken in welcoming people to Bedford Borough, be it Afghan refugees, Syrian. Actually, Bedford, I mean, you mentioned Syria as if we hadn't, but actually Bedford has sort of gone above and beyond and volunteered to under the previous Liberal Democrat-led administration. And I know that work is continuing with providing homes for people coming. So I don't want to make that a party political point, because I actually think when we're making that in that way about people's livelihoods, it cheapens it a bit, doesn't it? So I do support safe and legal routes. At the moment, if you go on the government website to look how you claim asylum, you have to be in the country to do that. So that probably explains why we've got a bit of a problem there. And I think making those safe and legal routes accessible to people is absolutely critically important. But also, I would end the hostile environment, allow asylum seekers, if their claim has not been heard within 3 months, to at least work and contribute. I think the suggestion that the answer to our immigration concerns is to break up families of NHS workers and social care workers is not right. So I don't support that. We may use the technical term dependence, but what that is that somebody's daughter or son or spouse of an NHS worker or social care worker, and I don't think that's right. So I also reject that rhetoric. But I would note that we can spend hundreds of millions of pounds on a Rwanda scheme that doesn't even work, while seeing the backlog of asylum claims go from 27,000 to 132,000. Why don't we use that money, instead of something that's making us an international pariah, to crack through the asylum backlog and have a dedicated team of lawyers to actually resolve people's claims? Because that might actually be a solution after all.
Thank you, Sadiq.
I'm a son of an immigrant. My father came to UK to have a better future, better life. I think immigrant has made a huge contribution to the British economy. I think they work hard, they pay tax. Myself, I come from Bangladeshi background, and I think Bangladeshi people had a major role in catering industry, curry industry. More than £10 billion contributed to the British economy. Sometimes it does really hurt me when I see political leaders single out the name of Bangladesh without realizing what Bangladeshi has made a huge contribution to the British economy. I think immigration is good, and I think we need to support. They all work hard and they're paying tax, and it is beneficial to our country.
Thank you. On that note, actually, there was a question actually raised about Keir Starmer's views that he'd expressed recently, and he seems to have gone back on Bangladeshi television and retracted some of those views. What was your feeling, being a British Bangladeshi, that a member of a major political party was to single you out as potentially somebody that he would consider removing from this country?
Yeah, if you look illegal immigrant on the top 10s, there's no name of Bangladesh. I don't understand what was the reason behind he singled out the name of Bangladeshi. I personally believe he must have something against the Bengali, but all I can say, look, check the fact. Bangladeshi people have made a huge contribution to this British economy. We are paying more than 10,000 through the catering industry. So please stop and recognize the immigrant, what impact they made. Good example, look at the example, Rishi Sunak. Look at the Sadiq Khan. They're the mayor of London. So they are the children of the immigrant. So count immigrant, what have they done? I think only way we can move forward, having people come from all walk of life.
Thank you. Pinder, would you like to comment? Did Pinder already
I think I
comment on
did
this?
my first one.
Yeah.
You asked me first, yeah.
So is that everybody? Okay.
No, I need to. Over the years, right, we've seen our country become more diverse on the people that are coming in here. And I think some of our foreign policies are to blame for the problem that we are having at the moment. We don't have the infrastructure to support it. Legal migration is good. Ask the farmers, ask the NHS, how much they rely on immigrants coming into the country. And if I was elected, I would work with the government to stop the boats coming in, stop the gangs who operate and profit from these people, but allow legal immigration from places, where people are persecuted, war-torn countries. I think that'll be the way forward. Asylum claims should be processed possibly in their own country by the embassies or high commissions, and the process should be a lot faster. So if people are allowed to come to this country, then they take the proper channels to come to this country and contribute to society.
Thank you, Tariq. Would you like the floor to anybody in the? Yeah, we have a question here at the front.
Thank you.
I do agree with Yassine, yeah, that the people of Gaza should be given the same treatment as the people of Ukraine, that they should be allowed to come in because they have feared much worse than what the Ukrainian people have feared. Yeah, I'm not saying that Ukrainian people haven't suffered; they've suffered as well, but they should be given the same rights to come to this country and be helped with financial aid when they come to this country. And it's a shame, Rod, that nobody's done this in the past.
I'd like to thank you for the candidates coming here and giving us a great support, listening to people's views and issues. My question is regarding the migration and immigration. I feel both parties have done little to support going back to 90s with the Eurogate opens under Tony Blair, and this boat we've seen coming. I think the both British government have failed to deal with French government, so they need to work closely with the French government, work closely with them to keep their borders secured, so our borders are controlled as well. So from my research, I found out that whoever next government is going to be, need to work closely with the French government to deal with their borders and not leaving it open for the boats to come in. So whoever the party is going to coming in, is our MPs going to supporting to work closely with the French government to deal with their control issues, so our immigration control will be down.
Thank you. So can I go to Yassine with that one first, please?
Can you please tell me you're pro-immigration or anti-immigration?
Yeah, no, Yassine, this is the question to you, not to them.
It's not a question.
No, but
okay.
One second.
Yes, we will work with the. France offered the UK government to work together. Offer wasn't taken. So what we need to do is, I think it's very important that we stop the boats. The reason for that is that these smugglers, they are using innocent people, make money, and half the people, they get drowned in the sea and die. This is insane. It shouldn't be happening like that. So we need to work with the French government to stop illegal boats. But also, we should need to give those people who are desperate and genuine cases to have a safer route, and they should be able to apply from their own country if they are genuine asylum seekers.
Thank you. Pinder, you want to come on that?
I think you have to almost question, where has he been? He's been the Member of Parliament for the last 7 years. Has he not realised what's been going on? We've been working very, very closely with the French government. We have, let me answer the question. Border police is already in France. We've brought down people smugglers. 384 people smugglers were actually arrested last year and detained last year. Let me just finish what I'm saying. That were detained last year. And then we're looking at, small boat crossings. You just mentioned that as well. We've created a small boat crossings command of 500 new staff that are able to manage those crossings as well. And they have brought down those boat crossings by 38%. More needs to be done. We need to have more stringent approaches. You're talking about Rwanda. Yes, it is an expensive policy. One thing with Rwanda is it is serving as a deterrent. And actually what's happening with that is other European countries are also following suit and using that. Immigration is an issue, not just for the UK, but the whole of Europe. So it is an issue from that perspective. So I just wanted to clarify that.
Go to Henry for that.
I think we're going to have this discussion endlessly, I think. Yeah. But the trouble is the Conservatives have also been the government for the last decade or more. And I think they're failing on the lot. And they're crashing. No, that's why I said decade, and I was carefully avoiding that time period. However, it's quite clear that things are completely crumbling from the Conservative Party's point of view, and they're failing to deliver policies. Well, if you blame the pandemic for the government's failings, but you want to attack the council for everything, which is it? You can't have both. But what I want to say, just very quickly on it, because this is what the question is, right? The question is on safe legal routes. Completely support that. Work with the French? Yes. It's almost as if negotiating multiple terrible deals and going for the worst, hardest Brexit was actually not such a good idea. And I'm amazed we haven't talked about Brexit a little bit more now, given the estimated cost of 100 billion to the UK economy, all right? But we should actually talk about healing those relationships with our European partners, tackling, yes, issues with people smugglers, dealing with the European arrest warrant, actually, so that we're brought back into a lot of these schemes that in the desperate desire of Boris, the party of Johnson, to cut all ties with our European neighbours, we sacrifice a huge amount of international security and global standing. So actually, that is what I would do. I would push for a closer relationship to deal with this.
Okay, so let's move on. One of the other questions, hang on, I was looking for it, I just lost it here. Did we do that one? Yeah. That one. Just bear with me. Yeah, the cost of living is kind of. I think I do want to go to the climate change question, to be honest. So that will get Henry excited and Ben as well, I'm sure. So it's a short question, relatively. Actually, the question is: the UK should be urgently financing a just transition to a sustainable economy and a safe, healthy planet for all. Will you commit to a fast and fair phase out of fossil fuels? Let's go with Ben, who's most excited, I think.
Well, it's such an easy question for me to answer. Yes, of course, the Green Party will. You know, the charities, the campaigning organisations have been marking the various parties' manifestos, and the joint analysis by Greenpeace and Friends of the Earth was that out of a possible 40 points that any political manifesto could get, the Green Party's got 39. The other parties were way behind. Labour's was about half that. The Conservatives were down about 7 points. I remember something like that. If you want decent action on these issues, there is really only one option for you, and that's the Green Party.
Thank you. So the next happiest person to answer this question, Henry, let's go for it.
Because Ben judiciously avoided mentioning the Lib Dems were second there, and the key difference is that our manifesto actually adds up. So you're either voting for something we can deliver or something that you can dream about. And I do think we have a really solid commitment to move to net zero by 2045. But actually, what I'm proudest of on the local track record, well, wait for it, Ben. What I'm proudest of on our local track record is that I voted and I supported the declaration of a climate emergency, the commitment to net zero on the council by 2030, okay, and actually building a solar farm that not only saves the planet, but actually draws in and saves money for local taxpayers. And you know that Archimedes screw on the river? I actually think it's really cool, right? You walk along the riverside and you see a hydroelectric power plant working. And you know what? That's what used to happen in the 17th century and the 18th century. It's just they were flour mills then. So I am really proud that I've got a track record locally of delivering on tackling climate change, but also our manifesto will actually tackle the climate crisis. That's why I was happy to answer that. Is that all right?
Yeah, sounds wonderful. Yasin, if you would like to take that one.
I'm proud to say this, that our Labour group put a motion in and Bedford Borough declared a climate emergency in Bedford. As a result, we planted thousands of, well, you were there as well, yeah. So Labour group played their part in it. Yeah. So they pushed, okay, but let me speak now. I didn't interrupt you, did I? Okay, so Rishi Sunak has taken so many U-turns on environmental pledges, especially his plan to ban new gas cars by 2030. So Labour will make sure that we will introduce clean power by 2030 and create GB energy funding by windfall tax. So we are going to move it faster than the Tories did. They've been sleeping on the steering wheel.
Great, thank you. Tariq, do you have a view on the climate change?
Yeah, I mean, we should strive to get to net zero as soon as possible. We've seen the devastating floods in Asia, in Europe, in the States. People have seen the changes in weather. It's affecting us all. And I would look to go greener, whether it's wind farms or nuclear energy. I'll be up for that.
Great. Pinder?
As a member of the Great River Ouse Regional Flood and Coastal Committee, flooding is probably one of the biggest impacts that we are going to see in this country when it comes to climate change. We are the first major economy to have halved emissions as well. So that's one thing that we're very, very proud of, whilst growing the economy as well. The other thing is we've also introduced a long-term environmental plan, and part of that plan is to restore 500,000 hectares of wildlife that's going out. The Conservative Party, the only party to have introduced nuclear plants as well, whenever we've been in power, it's always the Conservatives that have done that. So what I want to say this is, yes, we do need to reach net zero, but at the same time, we need to have a pragmatic approach. So even the Climate Change Committee is saying, even when we do reach net zero, we are still going to have some kind of reliance on oil and gas, although it needs to be reduced. But I think the major part of that is that we need to make sure that, you know, we are building a sustainable world.
Sure. Thank you. Sadiq?
Our government thus priorities giving resources to solve the urgent problems such as the need to live a sustainable and protect our natural environment, putting science at the service of the people.
Thank you. Okay, so I'm grateful to the candidates. We're going to come to a close, not just yet though. I'm now going to be pushing you, if you wouldn't mind. We're going to take 2 questions from the audience randomly. I have no idea what the question is, so potluck. And I will let you decide if you wish to answer it, bearing in mind, if it's a difficult question, they'll see that you're not answering it. So the first question is the chap behind you, Kaha.
Someone just mentioned Bedford is a very cosmopolitan place. What would you do within your powers to improve cohesion and build a community that goes beyond left, right, religion, and race?
Before you answer that, let's go to the second question. Anybody else got a question? You guys have had a ready to go. Apologies. I want to get somebody else. Oh, there's a lady there with. Yeah, let's end with the lady. Come on. Question on there. Final two. Final two.
Okay, my first question is really around education because no one's really talked about it in any detail. I was really interested in knowing your views, particularly from the Labour Party, about the introduction of VAT for independent schools. Now, as a parent of children who have been to both state and independent schools, this has some very serious repercussions in terms of reducing the choices available to us. Can you tell us, firstly, what was the the real reasoning behind it? And have you thought about the impact of it on local people? Thank you.
There's 2 questions there. One is related to cohesion and the other one is regarding education and EETs.
Put your hand up, everyone to go first. Yasin?
Great community cohesion in Bedford. In Bedford, we speak more than 120 languages, more than 110 different nationalities live here. We celebrate each other's festivals and special occasions together. And I'm so proud to say this, that when some incidents happen around the world, there were issues in other communities, in other towns, but Bedford stood up together. And so proud to represent Bedford and Kempston in Parliament. So it's one of the most diverse towns in Europe after London. So you know, we are doing really well in terms of community cohesion.
Ben?
Yeah, on the VAT, the Conservative government has been cutting funds for state schools for last 14 years. So the teachers, they have to buy stationery for the kids who couldn't afford it. So we are not putting any new tax, but some school where Rishi Sunak went, or Eton School, they're making billions of profit, but they're also getting exemption on VAT. All we're doing is moving the exemption of VAT. So we can spend 1.2 billion pound on state schools because we have to improve state education. At the moment, 6% kids are getting very good education, and other 94% are really struggling. So my question to in the race, what's her plan for state schools?
Yasin, the question is not.
That's my question.
No.
All,
1 second.
Okay. All the candidates.
1 second.
What is?
No, Yasin.
What is
Yasin, please.
Yeah.
Please. Don't start. Right. So let's go to Ben, please. Next. No.
Right.
No. No, no, 1 second, guys. We've had the questions from the audience now. Please, if you want to hear the answers, please let them speak. We've ended now. Thank you, Yasin.
I'm disgusted by the amount of heckling there is from people who are paid, party workers in this audience that have come along just to promote their political party, not to listen to what people are saying. I really am disgusted by that. Now, myself, in terms of promoting cohesion, I'm a school governor at one of the most diverse schools in Bedford. I know that our schools can do a massive, massive amount to promote cohesion. And one of the things that they need to do that is enough freedom and enough resourcing to do so. We've currently got the situation with over control by central government with Ofsted, with the promotion of the agenda of academisation, and it's meaning that school governors, schools are no longer really able to influence how they run their schools adequately. And when they're given the chance, as fortunately is happening in the school where I'm a governor, they do a really, really good job of promoting cohesion, and they should be given more support, more ability to do that.
Thank you, Ben. Thank you. Henry, did you answer already? I forgot, sorry. So if you'd like to.
Cool. Although my inner teacher wants to start telling people off for speaking over other people. Anyway, sorry. My solution on our community cohesion, I think Bedford does have a great track record on that, but I do think things like cuts to trains, longer train journeys, civil society is actually at risk if people are constantly having to work longer and longer hours, and if there are not nurseries that provide that cover. So I think what I would say is it's local authority funding, support for small charities, and actually reducing the regulation that small charities have to go through, because actually I think that would enable so many more voices to come out. And I've said that before, and that's a consistent view of mine, because when you're on a small charity trust or something, which I say I support a couple locally, you end up spending so much time going through regulations. So actually it's a bit similar to what Ben was saying around Ofsted and schools. On independent schools, I declare an interest because I do work in one. But my party's position is one that I support. So I don't support VAT on school fees because I am concerned about the implication, frankly, of VAT on music lessons, VAT on extra maths lessons, VAT on education as a principle. I think is something which I'm actually not comfortable with.
So if you would mind, let's move on. Tariq?
Yeah. I believe cohesion is key to Bedford, and we should champion cohesion, whenever possible. And the VAT on private school, right, is unjust. There are parents out there who are just about, making the 3 monthly fees, and by putting VAT on will be just unfair, right? We will deprive people of a good education, which is totally unfair. And I believe that there should be no VAT, and it'll put extra pressure on the schools.
Okay.
And I don't think anybody's going to redress that problem.
Let's go with Pinder. Do you want to answer that?
Yes. I've been a candidate here for the last 18 months, and I think the gentleman's right over there. Bedford is a very diverse and a very special place when it comes to different communities, bringing them together and celebrating that as well. So very, very much in support of that, and we'll always support that. But number two, this thing on private schools and the 20% VAT, I absolutely disagree with that, because actually what it's going to do is put more pressure on our state schools. I mean, Emily Thornberry in an interview last week, they asked her about the school class sizes, and she said, oh, it's okay, we can increase the class sizes to 40 students when it comes to, state schools. It's going to put an immense pressure on the state school system. Now, the other thing is that, we've got, and a lot of investment has gone into state schools. So as much as Labour want to say there isn't, we've actually given £2 billion in extra funding as well. And we are increasing the school budget to just over £60 billion. But what's really important is this is a policy that divides different people together. It almost looks like like it's a class policy thing, with the most beneficial in society are going to somehow support. What's happening here is private school education should be a choice. A lot of parents are not very, very rich parents that are sending their children to private school. They're taking the pressure off the state's school system in order to do that. But what they are doing is they are making sacrifices when it's coming to things like holidays or, houses and so on. So I absolutely disagree with that. Thank you.
Pinder. Salik, sorry.
I'll just make it short. Yeah, Bedford is a multicultural society. I think we should continue to build harmony and the community cohesion with the wider society. In relation to the VAT, I think something we don't support. I think whether you rich or poor, every children deserve to have a good education.
Lovely, thank you. So again, thank you to the candidates for attending, and we appreciate the fact you took your time and did that. I think we haven't got time. We're just going to skip that for now. So what we're going to do is what I would like. Are you guys okay? So in that case, can we have another question as well from the audience? No, don't think that. Yeah, we were promised. Okay, 1 minute each. All right. Who wants to put their hand up first? Ben? Start this way. Okay, yeah, Sadiq, I'll let you go start. Go ahead. Go ahead.
Thank you for giving me the privilege. I really appreciate that. Okay. Ladies and gentlemen, you heard from the whole audience and also, from the old panelists. I want you to go home and think deeply and decide yourself. I want you to be judge. I want you to be jury. I want you to decide your next 5 years, what you want for your children and your grandchildren, whether you want those two elite political party or do you want something who can represent you in the parliament. So I really want you, don't go for the tactical vote, go for the vote which your heart tell you to vote. So I want you to stand up for change. Thank you.
Pinder?
Yeah. I want to unlock Bedford and Kempston's future. Bedford and Kempston have been let down by the Labour MP for the last 7 years. I was selected to stand in this seat 23 days just after my mother's funeral, and I had been knocking on doors for the last 18 months. So this journey has been not only a political one, but a personal one for me. I've knocked on thousands of doors and listened to your views. I've run hundreds of surveys and worked on issues around Bedford and Kempston. Bedford has been left behind for the last 7 years. An MP who is happy to make excuses and take credit for things such as saving Bedford Hospital, which was actually saved by a former MP. Now you can refer to Hansard and Google and find the facts on that. There are 145 votes here between Labour and the Conservatives. This is a two-horse race. I'm the only female candidate that is standing here in this general election. And what I will promise is a 100-day plan after I'm elected with each community sitting here to understand what your personal issues are, to reach to you ward by ward and understand how we can improve Bedford and Kempston and make this the best place to bring up your family and your children.
Tariq?
I think Pinder's got a shot coming on Thursday night. Then if is that what she thinks? Yeah. Listen, you've seen Labour, you've seen the Tories, right? 14 years. 14 years of austerity. My last posting, I was the crew chief on board the Royal Squadron. I used to fly with all the parliamentarians, and I know how much money has been wasted by these parties on these jaunts. So put your trust in an independent, somebody who's loyal, integral, and trustworthy. Yeah, somebody who's put his life on the line to come out and do this in the last 6 weeks. Unfortunately, I haven't got a track record in the politics to tell you everything that I've done, but I can assure you, I will work hard day and night to put the people of Bedford first, yeah, because I do not have a party that I need to align to. And for that reason, I've donated half of my salary to services in Bedford, if elected, yeah. I'm not in it for the money. I'm doing it for the right reason.
Thank you.
And another thing, yeah. I was deterred by my colleague on the left, yeah, not to go into this democratic process, yeah, through some illegitimate means. And also, the integrity of my colleague, yeah, he told members of the Asian community, the young youth, yeah, about my background,
Can you
my
stick
service to this great country, yeah, was not good, right? I was involved in killing innocent people, which is not true, yeah. He wants to serve the people, the government of this country, yeah, who's trying to blame.
Thank you, Tariq. I think we close that. That's your statement. Thank you. So, yeah, we're closing. This is the closing statement. Let's stick to that, please. Henry?
No, thank you. Just when you said that colleague to your left, I was like, what? No, sorry. Anyway, right, my minute, if I may. I've talked about my track record. That does matter. I want you to think about that. I haven't just come new to politics, okay? I've been a councillor since 2011. I'm really proud of some of the stuff that we've delivered. And actually, that Bedford has bucked the trend for the last 14 years, despite Conservative government cuts. Okay, so that's number one. Number two, let's be honest, the Conservatives are fragmenting. One day it's Reformer ahead, one day it's the Conservatives ahead. They're not going to win a seat like Bedford. So what I want you to do is think, if you're a Conservative voter, do you support the £200 on telecare, those red buttons that vulnerable adults have, that the Conservative council is imposing on them? And do you support the maximum council tax rise that is allowed? If you don't, then you need to start jumping ship now. So anyone thinking about voting Conservative in this election, vote Liberal Democrat instead. We can give Labour a run for their money. And I want to urge you to vote Liberal Democrat in this election.
Thank you, Henry. Yasin, would you like to?
Last 5 years, we dealt with chaos of Tory party. 4 prime ministers, 8 home secretaries. When I used to write to these home secretaries and others a letter, by the time letter gets to London, we had a new person there. It was chaos. And we couldn't put our case to anybody. If you want NHS, vote Labour. Don't forget the lies of the Tory party. Don't forget Boris Johnson, who let the people down. Don't believe a word they say. This seat is between Labour and Conservative. All these people got nothing, no chance whatsoever. If you want your MP to fight for the special local services, if you want your MP to stand up for Gaza, that MP is Mohammed Yassin. So please support Mohammed Yassin.
Yasin. Okay. Ben, if you would kindly come with the closing statement. Thank you. Thank you, Tariq. Thank you. It's Ben's turn now, please.
Yeah, Pinder says she's standing for honesty and integrity. Well, sorry, Pinder, you're in the wrong party for that, really. Now, Yazim, by contrast, says Labour won't overpromise. Well, yeah, it's very true. They're promising very little more than just changing the names on the ministerial offices. Yeah, and Yazin talked of Sunak's U-turn, but he failed to mention Starmer's U-turn on the £28 billion for climate. Yeah. And he also says you should be voting for the NHS, but nobody will commit more money to the NHS than the Green Party. Now, if you care about what your children, your nieces and nephews will have to face when you are gone, it's very simple. There's only one option. You really do have to think of them and vote Green.
So thank you to you all. And I'd just like to reiterate, it's easy for us to be critical, and rightly we should be penetrating their positions. But at the end of the day, we have to have courage as well. And these folk here are showing the courage to stand up. And for our democratic process, we need people like this. We might not agree with their views, okay, and we can push on them. But, you know, we give thanks to that fact they are here. And just before we end, I want to end on a little prayer, which is from a son of Bedford, the late Archbishop Trevor Holliston, who said, God, and I'm paraphrasing his prayer, God bless Bedford, guard her people, guide her leaders, and give her peace. Thank you very much, everybody.